Breaking. David Mann confirms Tamala Mann's health worse than we thought. You know her as the gospel powerhouse whose voice could shake souls and bring entire congregations to tears. A woman whose anointed melodies like "Take Me to the King" became lifelines for millions. But now, in a twist no one saw coming, Tamala Mann, the queen of worship, has fallen nearly silent. And the truth behind her sudden disappearance isn't just tragic, it's terrifying. For weeks, fans noticed the signs: missed appearances, canceled shows, cryptic social media posts, but no one had answers. Until now. In a heartbreaking and deeply personal reveal, her husband David Mann finally broke his silence. And what he shared is worse than we feared. It's not just exhaustion. It's not just surgery complications. It's a medical storm, one that has left Tamala disoriented, fragile, and fighting for her life. David, best known as Mr. Brown to the world but protector to his wife, opened up in a private, emotionally raw interview. "I've seen her cry before," he said, "but never like this. This is different. This is deeper." Behind her recent weight loss, behind the beautiful stage presence we all admired, a crisis was quietly unfolding. Neurological decline, memory lapses, inflammation, even seizures. There was one night David said that he thought he lost her for good. She stopped responding. He held her hand and whispered goodbye until she barely squeezed his fingers. That tiny movement became a tidal wave of hope. This isn't just a health battle. It's spiritual warfare. A war for a voice that once brought healing to so many, now being silenced. But Tamala, she hasn't given up. And neither has David. If love could heal her, he said she'd be home already. This is more than an update. It's a call to action. If her music ever carried you through a storm, if her voice ever lifted you from despair, now is your turn to lift her. Because this time, Tamala Mann needs us. Before the bright lights, the Grammy Awards, and the sold-out gospel tours, Tamala Mann was simply a young girl with a powerful voice and a quiet determination. Born Tamala Jean Johnson on June 9, 1966 in Fort Worth, Texas, her journey was never paved in gold. Raised in a deeply religious and modest household as the youngest of 14 children, Tamala grew up immersed in faith, family, and music. Her mother, Mother Epe, was a devout churchgoer who made sure all her children understood the importance of worship. And for Tamala, church wasn't just a spiritual escape, it was where she found her voice. From an early age, Tamala's vocal talent was unmistakable. At just 8 years old, she was already performing solos in the adult church choir, astonishing congregations with a maturity and emotional depth far beyond her years. But life in Fort Worth wasn't easy. Money was tight and opportunities were limited. Still, Tamala kept singing, using her voice as both shield and sanctuary. Her big break came in the early 1990s when she was discovered by Kirk Franklin, a fellow gospel talent from Texas. Recognizing her powerhouse vocals and genuine spirit, Franklin invited her to join his newly formed group, Kirk Franklin and the Family. It was the opportunity Tamala had prayed for, and she delivered with every note. Her solo on "Now Behold the Lamb" became one of the most iconic performances in modern gospel history. With Franklin's group, she didn't just sing, she soared. But while the gospel world was just beginning to fall in love with her voice, Tamala was falling in love behind the scenes. Enter David Mann, a fellow member of Franklin's group, a man with a comedic heart and a spirit that matched her own. Their chemistry was undeniable. The two became inseparable both professionally and personally. By 1988, they were married, embarking on a journey that would redefine what it meant to be gospel royalty. Together, they became a team on stage, on screen, and off. The Manns began working closely with Tyler Perry, who cast them in several stage plays including I Can Do Bad All by Myself and Meet the Browns. David played the comical Mr. Brown, while Tamala took on roles that showcased both her acting and singing chops. Their transition into television and film was seamless. Audiences didn't just see actors, they saw authenticity. Their marriage, their humor, and their unwavering faith made them household names. But while David made people laugh, Tamala made them cry with her voice. Her solo music career officially took off in the early 2000s. In 2005, she released her debut album, Gotta Keep Movin', which included fan favorites like Speak Lord. But it was her 2012 album, Best Days, that catapulted her into gospel superstardom. The hit single, Take Me to the King, written by Kirk Franklin, topped the Billboard gospel charts for 19 consecutive weeks. It earned Tamala a Grammy nomination and eventually a Grammy win. But more than that, it became an anthem, a cry for healing, deliverance, and hope. Take Me to the King wasn't just a song. It was a soul-stirring prayer wrapped in melody. People sang it at funerals and hospital rooms during late-night breakdowns. Tamala's voice became a balm to the broken. Her ability to channel raw emotion through her singing made her stand out, not just in gospel, but in all of music. She wasn't performing. She was ministering. As her music career blossomed, Tamala also focused on health and wellness. Over the years, she spoke openly about her struggles with weight and self-image. But rather than hiding it, she used her platform to encourage others. She became a spokesperson for healthy living, embarking on a personal journey of transformation. In 2019, she underwent double knee replacement surgery and committed to lifestyle changes. With David by her side, she lost over 100 pounds and inspired countless fans to take charge of their health. What remained consistent through all her changes, physical, emotional, or spiritual, was her faith and her family. Tamala and David have 4 children, including their daughter, Tia Mann, who has followed in her mother's footsteps with her own music aspirations. The Manns are known for being a tight-knit, God-fearing family. They pray together, work together, and publicly support each other. Their love story is one of the most admired in gospel and black entertainment. Beyond her music and acting, Tamala has built a multifaceted career. She and David launched their own record label, Tillyman Music Group, giving Tamala full creative control over her releases. She also authored books, starred in family reality shows, and continued to tour globally. Her brand extended into fashion with a plus-size clothing line tailored for women who wanted to feel confident and stylish at any size. She became a symbol not just of gospel excellence, but of black womanhood grace and resilience. Still, despite all her success, Tamala never strayed from her calling. She continued to perform in churches, partner with ministries, and lead worship events across the country. Her live shows were never just concerts, they were encounters, moments of collective healing and faith renewal. No matter how famous she became, Tamala always returned to her spiritual roots. But even those who seem strongest face storms. The recent revelation of her health struggles, marked by neurological complications, rapid weight loss side effects, memory loss, and seizures, has shocked the world. Yet when you look back on Tamala's life, one thing becomes clear: she was built for battles. Her entire story is a testimony of rising after the fall, of grace under fire, of healing amid heartbreak. And perhaps that's what makes this moment so emotional for her fans. Because Tamala Mann isn't just another celebrity. She's the voice behind your midnight tears, the song that helped you keep breathing. The woman who reminded you through her music that God never forgets his children. Now, it's her turn to be remembered, prayed for, and lifted up. David Mann's unwavering devotion. The prayers from fans across the globe and the spiritual warfare unfolding behind the scenes are all part of a larger story. A story that began with a little girl in Fort Worth who believed her voice could do more than entertain. It could heal, and it still can. So as Tamala fights for her health, her memory, her mobility, and her voice, we remember the foundation she built. A foundation of love, of gospel, of purpose. From singing in church choirs, to topping Billboard charts, from playing Cora in Meet the Browns, to leading thousands in worship, from being a devoted wife and mother to a trailblazing artist and entrepreneur, Tamala Mann has always stood tall. Even now, in a hospital bed surrounded by prayers and worship music, she remains a pillar of faith. The story of Tamala Mann's rise to fame isn't just about a voice, it's about purpose. It's about how one woman turned praise into power, how humble beginnings evolved into a gospel empire, and how obedience to a calling opened doors no record label or Hollywood agent ever could. Her journey to the top of the gospel world is as miraculous as the music she sings. Tamala Mann's first steps toward national fame didn't come through a mainstream stage or a viral video. They came through the sanctuary, through choir stands, revival services, and late-night altar calls. Born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, her childhood revolved around the church. From the start, Tamala's musical foundation was gospel through and through. She wasn't just influenced by it, she lived it. Her earliest memories were of her mother singing hymns in the kitchen of Sunday mornings filled with tambourines and testimonies, and of her own voice echoing through the rafters as she led the adult choir in songs of worship at only 8 years old. It was during these early years that she learned the spiritual depth behind a song. Her vocal talent was matched only by her emotional delivery. Even then, people described her voice as anointed, not just beautiful, but filled with something otherworldly. Still, for years, she remained unknown outside her local congregation. But God was preparing her for something greater. That greater came in the early 1990s, when gospel phenom Kirk Franklin began assembling a group of singers to form Kirk Franklin and the Family. Tamala, whose voice had already made waves in local circuits, caught his attention. She was invited to join, and from that moment on, everything changed. Their debut album, Kirk Franklin and the Family 1993, was groundbreaking. Blending traditional gospel with urban sounds, Franklin's group revolutionized gospel music, and Tamala's voice was at the center of it. Her solo on Now Behold the Lamb became iconic, a once-in-a-generation performance that stirred souls across denominations. Her delivery was haunting, tender, and explosively powerful. Suddenly, Tamala Mann wasn't just a member of the group, she was the voice fans waited to hear. Critics began calling her one of the most gifted female vocalists in gospel music, and her reputation grew. But Tamala never let the fame go to her head. She remained grounded even as the Family gained more success with each album. And during this whirlwind period, she and fellow member David Mann were building something even more important, a partnership rooted in love and faith. They had married in 1988, just before the group's rise, and their chemistry on and off the stage became a powerful force. As Kirk Franklin's music expanded into crossover territory, gaining attention from secular audiences, Tamala was quietly preparing for her solo leap. But instead of rushing into the spotlight, she chose a more intentional path. She and David began collaborating with Tyler Perry, whose stage plays were gaining momentum in the early 2000s. Their first major project with Perry was I Can Do Bad All By Myself, in which Tamala played Cora Simmons and David played the wildly beloved Mr. Brown. What started as stage comedy grew into a cultural movement. Audiences across the country packed into theaters not just for the laughs, but for the music. Tamala often sang during the plays, giving emotional performances that brought people to tears. Her voice became the emotional backbone of many of Perry's productions. Soon, she was starring in Meet the Browns' Medea's Family Reunion and What's Done in the Dark. The plays led to films, and eventually to a television series, Meet the Browns, 2009 to 2011, where Tamala reprised her role as Cora. By this point, the world had truly taken notice. But Tamala wasn't just content with being an actress or ensemble singer. She had something else to say, something deeply personal. In 2005, she released her debut solo album, Gotta Keep Movin'. Though modest in commercial reach, the project resonated with gospel fans who had followed her since the Kirk Franklin days. Tracks like Speak Lord became favorites in churches, further cementing her identity as a solo artist. However, it wasn't until 2012 that Tamala truly exploded as a gospel music giant. Her album Best Days, released under her and David's independent label, Tillyman Music Group, was a revelation. The lead single, Take Me to the King, written and produced by Kirk Franklin, became an instant classic. The song's plea, raw, aching, sincere, struck a chord with millions. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard Gospel chart and stayed there for 19 consecutive weeks. Tamala had always been respected in the industry, but now she was a household name. Take Me to the King did more than sell records. It ushered in a new era for gospel music, one where the genre could go toe-to-toe with mainstream pop in emotional impact and commercial success. The song earned Tamala her first Grammy nomination and later a Grammy Award for Best Gospel Performance Song. Suddenly, Tamala was performing on BET, the Stellar Awards, the Dove Awards, and even The Tonight Show. She wasn't just preaching to the choir, she was singing to the world. Her album Best Days went gold, a rare feat in gospel. Tamala followed up with One Way in 2016, which debuted at #1 as well, and included hits like God Provides, another tear-inducing anthem. Again, she won at the Stellar Awards, snagged more Grammy nods, and toured extensively. Her voice was now considered one of the most powerful in gospel standing, alongside legends like Yolanda Adams and CeCe Winans. But Tamala's fame never made her distant. She often opened up about her personal life, her marriage, her weight struggles, her faith journey. In a world where celebrities curate perfection, Tamala was refreshingly real. She spoke about undergoing double knee surgery, her challenges with dieting, and her fears about the spotlight. Rather than weaken her image, it strengthened her bond with fans. She wasn't just a performer. She was relatable, human, honest. She and David co-wrote a memoir, Us Against the World, Our Secrets to Love, Marriage, and Family, offering deep insights into their relationship, their challenges, and their triumphs. The book led to a companion album and tour, which was less about entertainment and more about ministry. They sang, they testified, they wept with their audience. Tamala's appeal was never rooted in showmanship. It was in her transparency. Every note she sang was wrapped in her testimony. Every lyric felt lived in. She could bring a stadium to silence with just a whisper or summon praise with a single wail. Her gift wasn't just vocal, it was spiritual. As she continued to climb, accolades poured in multiple NOOACP Image Awards, BET Awards, Gospel Music Association honors. She graced magazine covers, walked red carpets, and launched a fashion line for curvy women promoting body positivity and confidence. But through it all, she stayed planted in the church. She never forgot where it began. Her concerts remained sacred spaces, her interviews always included scripture, and her social media, even in glamour, always pointed back to God. Tamala Mann's rise to fame is rare in its authenticity. She didn't need scandals, viral gimmicks, or controversy. She rose because of substance. Because her voice moved people not just emotionally, but spiritually. Her fame was earned note by note, testimony by testimony, service by service. For years, Tamala Mann's life seemed like a testimony in motion, an open book filled with grace, glory, and gospel. Her rise from church pews to Grammy-winning stages was nothing short of divine orchestration. But behind the curtain of worship songs and red carpet smiles, a darker narrative had been quietly unraveling, one that even her most devoted fans never saw coming. The silence started as a whisper missed tour dates, canceled interviews, delayed appearances. Tamala, who had always been present and transparent with her audience, began to disappear from view. Whispers turned to speculation. Was it burnout? Family issues? A personal sabbatical? Fans were left piecing together breadcrumbs, a cryptic Instagram post with praying hands, a no-show at a gospel festival she was slated to headline, and David Mann's uncharacteristic absence from the spotlight. Then came the quiet confirmation the moment David Mann, her husband of over 3 decades, broke down the wall of silence. In an off-the-record conversation that was eventually leaked, David revealed that Tamala was battling something far more serious than exhaustion. She was facing a health crisis, one so complex and devastating it rocked their entire world. At the root of the crisis were complications from Tamala's rapid weight loss and previous surgeries which had initially been celebrated as a health triumph. But the truth was much more painful. The transformation had taken a toll not just on her body, but on her brain. Fatigue gave way to confusion. A sudden fall led to an ER visit. Tests revealed severe neurological concerns, brain inflammation, potential autoimmune complications, and signs of systemic stress collapse. What was supposed to be a victory became a haunting spiral. She started forgetting where she was. David confessed. She'd ask the same question over and over, and some mornings, she didn't wake up at all until nearly noon. He described trembling hands, vacant stares, and nights when Tamala would cry in her sleep. The woman who once commanded thousands with a single note could now barely rise from bed. But what made it all even more terrifying was the unpredictability. One moment, Tamala was lucid, humming old gospel songs and joking with family. The next, she'd lose hours, unable to recognize her own daughter. "Some days it's like I'm watching my wife disappear piece by piece," David said, his voice heavy with heartbreak. Doctors remained cautious, speaking of long-term nerve damage, memory loss, and the horrifying possibility that Tamala might never sing again. For David, the idea wasn't just devastating, it was unthinkable. "I didn't marry a voice," he told them. "I married a soul." But even that truth couldn't numb the pain of watching the woman he loved fade into a stranger trapped in her own body. As the Mann family reeled from one medical emergency after another more spiritual dimension began to emerge, one that David could no longer ignore. This wasn't just a physical ailment. It felt like an attack, a battle in the unseen, a spiritual war for a voice that had once shattered chains. "There's something else going on here," David told close friends. "This isn't just medical. It's warfare." Every time they attempted to go public with updates, something would happen. Tamala would seize test results, would change, she'd suddenly relapse. "It's like we were being silenced," he said. Like the enemy was trying to steal her voice before she could finish her assignment. The idea may sound far-fetched to some, but in the deeply spiritual world of gospel ministry, it resonates. Tamala Mann wasn't just an entertainer, she was a weapon. Her voice didn't just inspire, it healed. It ushered people into prayer, into surrender, into faith. What happens when that voice is silenced? What message is lost? What stronghold stays intact? In a deeply emotional moment, David described a night when a visiting prophet entered Tamala's hospital room and began to pray in tongues. Tamala, motionless for days, suddenly began to move her lips. She started praying with him. David whispered. It was the first time we knew she was still in there. From that night forward, their hospital room became a sanctuary. Worship music played 24/7. Pastors anointed her with oil. Gospel singers called and sang into her ear. Even Kirk Franklin sent voice notes to encourage her spirit. But not all moments were light. One night, Tamala suffered a prolonged seizure. Her oxygen levels dropped. A code blue was called. David fell to his knees, begging God not to take her, not like this. And then in the quiet aftermath, Tamala opened her eyes and whispered one word, Jesus. It was a whisper, but it roared louder than any song she'd ever sung. It was a sign that her soul was still fighting, even if her body was weak. Still, the darkness lingered. Tensions in the family flared. Some members questioned medical decisions. Others felt updates should have been made public sooner. David stood firm. I'm her voice, he said. Until she can speak, I speak for her. Throughout it all, he stayed by her side, sleeping in chairs, playing her old songs, reading scripture. Even if she forgets my name, he said, I'll remind her every day. This isn't a story of death, but it is a story of dying. Dying to fear, to pride, to public image. It's the story of a woman who gave her voice to the world, now surrounded by the same prayers she once led. It's also a story of a family under spiritual siege, because when your gift heals others, your battle is never just yours. It becomes collective. And for Tamala Mann, the darkness has come knocking louder than ever before. But David believes light is still in the room. He sees it in her whispered lyrics. He hears it in the children's voices singing her songs. He feels it in the midnight prayers from strangers across the globe. The enemy may have tried to silence her, but even in the silence, Tamala's spirit still speaks. In the darkest hours of Tamala Mann's life, when her voice went quiet and her memory slipped away, one constant remained: love. Not the kind sold on movie screens or sung about in pop songs, but the kind forged through vows, faith, and fire. David Mann didn't just stand beside his wife. He became her anchor, her voice, her reminder that she is still here, still loved, and still fighting. We've followed their journey through decades of music and ministry. We've laughed at their on-screen banter, cried during her songs, and rooted for their family from afar. But nothing has tested the Manns like this. Tamala's illness has stripped away the fame, the lights, the glamour. What's left is a woman in battle and a husband who refuses to let go. And just when things seemed hopeless, something shifted. David shared a moment that changed everything. After one of Tamala's worst episodes, seizures, silence, no response. He held her hand, whispered one of her old songs, and to his shock she mouthed the words back, barely audible, nearly invisible. But it was her. And in that moment, David said, I knew she was still in there. I knew God wasn't done. That moment, so small yet so powerful, wasn't just for David. It was a message for all of us. Hope isn't gone. And now, he's asking us to believe with him. If Tamala's music has ever lifted you, if her voice ever got you through a sleepless night, a funeral, a moment of doubt, this is your moment to give back. Speak her name in prayer. Leave a comment below. Share your testimony. Light a candle. Play her songs loud enough to reach the heavens. Because as David said with tears in his eyes, if love could heal her, she'd be home already. But maybe if enough of us love her back, if enough of us believe she'll sing again. Let's not just watch this story. Let's become part of it. Drop a prayer in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to see what real love, real faith, and real fight looks like. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence and turn on your notifications. Because when that breakthrough finally comes, and we believe it will, you'll want to be right here to witness it with us. Until then, keep praying, keep believing, and remember, God is not done with Tamala Mann yet.